and gentlemen, it is 10:30. Yeah, I'm going to do the survey.
Order certification if they need it. Clean up around their area.
Yeah, because I want to do that now and not here.
Now would be better because people don't lose their break
Exactly.
as we say we're done.
Yeah, fine.
So, yeah.
Survey. I was just going to ask, who do you want us to give that to? And do you want our names on it? Like if we said yes, we'll help plan the next one. You probably need to know who said yes.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure.
All right. Let's go ahead and bring it in. Real quickly, while you're making your way to your seats, I would like to do some admin remarks for you. The survey, please, if you have not taken the opportunity to do the survey, please do so. There's some, you'll see questions on there that are related to just the conference, but also there are just some that are related to PA in general. We wanted to take the opportunity, if you're going to fill out a survey, let's ask some questions about the career field. Let's ask questions that that would be relevant to what we can gather. So if you don't mind filling that out, we appreciate it. There's a box in the back that you could deposit those so we can gather that information. Also, instead of making this toward the end, we're going to mention this now, making sure your area is cleaned up, okay? So if you see any trash, even if it's not yours, please pick it up, put it in the trash can. And also take all your personal items with you. If you see something that is not yours, but we need to put like in a lost and found, just take it back to the food area, and we'll make sure that we make an announcement if somebody has lost anything, okay? And one other one. What was the other one?
Swag. There
yes.
Stickers and socks.
Stickers, socks. You can put stickers on the socks if you want. The last few notebooks were sitting where the refreshments are, and I don't see them there anymore. But no books. Okay, I'm getting the signal there. LinkedIn swag. All right, just start throwing it everywhere. That'll be great. Okay. Where do you want to put it just so people know? Just come to you. Okay, raise your hands. Everybody see LinkedIn swag for there. So go see her for that. All right, anything else I'm missing, Meredith? Okay, awesome. So don't forget, surveys, clean up, and be careful traveling home. And I'll pass it over to Colonel Hareen. Oh, yeah, if you need certified orders, let us know. We'll have that in the back for you.
You ready, sir? Yes. He's nervous about my introduction.
I'm always nervous about your
If everyone can come in and take their seats, please. So our final speaker for the 2020 PA Powerhouse Symposium is our final speaker for a reason. We saved the best for last, General Palmer. It may also be because I'm out of books and certificates, so you get nothing. But I knew you wouldn't be offended. Actually, he's gotten everything along the way already. For PA speakers, General Flournoy, he's the best PA speaker. So if you don't know by now, General Rob Palmer is the mobilization to the Air Force Director of Public Affairs, Office of the Secretary of the Air Force. What that means to us is he's our highest ranking officer in Air Force Reserve PA. Previously, he served as the Special Assistant to Public Affairs at the Office of the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and was in my position as the AFRIC PA Director 2 iterations ago, which is where I first got to meet him and experience his dry wit and his obsession with golden retrievers. He will openly say he loves his dog more than his children. While he apparently thinks I'm a very stubborn person, I've forgiven you, sir, only because we know that your ability to talk can wear even the most talkative and stubborn PA officers down. So I blame this on your Citadel social upbringing. I don't know. Joking aside, sir, a few years ago, I drafted a note to Brigadier General Thomas on why you should be chosen as our MA, which is where he got some of the comments from your promotion ceremony last month. So I thought today you could finally hear the rest of the story. So here's what I wrote. His bio shows he understands all aspects of the Air Force Reserve. From full-time to part-time, IMA to TR, he's served in almost every status. He's advised the CAFR, he excelled as a MAJCOM Commander's Public Affairs Director, he's worked in the joint world, has Army experience, half-level legislative and NCR expertise, and is a stellar spokesperson and leader. Then Colonel Palmer has accomplished everything the Air Force Reserve Command Force Development process asks us reservists to tackle. Well, he's the first to tell you he's never served as a wing PA. It certainly didn't stop him from training, equipping, and manning and supporting our TR units and wing PA shops across the AFR, as well as supporting all the RegAF PA calls for IMA and reserve augmentation. He was visionary in working with AFPA and the active duty and reserve COM squadrons to get the very first PA TFI associate unit started. He understands deployments, operations, PA, COM, LL, and most importantly, the importance of knowing his people and leading his people. There's not one PA across the AFR who doesn't know Colonel Palmer because he made it a point to meet every one of us. He leads, and this is not always a quality we find in the reserve, nor in our PA career field at times, but he shacks both. Now, I know at times he can rub people the wrong way a little bit. He's too honest at times, a bit pithy, and plays devil's advocate, maybe one step too far on occasion. But he's authentic, he's action-oriented, and he knows our reserve career field. He's also humble to a fault, which he'd be mortified to know that I was writing this to you, and doesn't advocate for himself tonight. And he is eligible for the MA position. We all know this, and we all want him. Well, sir, we finally got you. Please join me in welcoming General Rob Palmer.
Does this work? Oh, great. I can tell how much of you are, how excited everyone is because everybody left. So that was a very nice introduction. So I have this question after hearing that. How many of you think you're as awesome as I am? Okay. So there were 3 hands that went up, and Kelly Goonan wasn't one of them. I would have lost that bet. So here's the problem. 3 of you are right, and the rest of you are wrong. All of you are as awesome as I am. All of you. All of you are capable of doing the job that I do. That doesn't mean you'll get the chance. Chief Bisco here is a lot better than I am when it comes to television interviews. Because I've seen you. Thank you, sir. You're good. Thank you, sir. You're also an old chief. They're not going to make you a general. And let's be honest, it'd be a demotion. But all of you have the abilities because we're PA professionals. Now, there's a reason I'm saying this, and it's not to talk about how awesome I am, but I want you guys to know I wasn't born under a special sign that said, someday he'll be a PA general. There was no star in the East. Even though I was born on December 29th, really close to Christmas, there was no star in the East. When I was a young cadet at the Citadel in August of 1986, and Cadet Corporal Randy Bresnick was this far from my face, screaming every obscenity he knew, I had no way of knowing one day he would be an astronaut and a Marine and retire as a colonel, but I'd be a general. Didn't know that. When given the opportunity after a 4-year Army ROTC scholarship to go straight into the Guard and get a real job that made a lot of money, 1, I didn't get the real job that made a lot of money. 2, I had no idea I'd be an Air Force Reserve general. In fact, I spent a lot of my time making fun of Air Force people. When I decided that I was going to cross over into the blue, my dad says, "Oh, Rob, you got a lot of payback coming." And I'm like, you know what? It's worth it. Bring it on. I was commissioned as a field artillery officer and then later as a public affairs officer. Well, I wasn't commissioned as a public affairs officer, I was blessed. But that was a joke. Y'all aren't helping me here. You know, I didn't have this idea that someday I would do this. My career didn't take some great path. And yesterday we had the officers upstairs, and I got to credit Dave Small, who did have to leave. He said, there's not one path. There absolutely isn't one path. There's not one path to chief. There's not one path to general. There's not one path to the AFRCPA director. There's multiple ways. So I hear folks that come to me, they're like, you know, I've got to get joint qualified. And I happen to be joint qualified. One reason I went to be joint qualified was it was such a pain. I'm like, by God, I'm going to get this done. I didn't have squadron command. I've only deployed twice. The last time was 2006. I think some of you might not have been born yet. So everybody will tell you, you got to do this. And I'm going to tell you, the folks, those of you who have close friends on active duty, those of you who have spouses on active duty, those of you who find yourself tied by affection or affinity to pilots, you'll hear, but you got to do this. You got to do that. You didn't do this, so you're not going to be that. Forget it. You all can excel. In this room, hopefully, there's at least 3, maybe 4 future mobilization assistants to the Secretary of the, to SAF PA. In this room, hopefully, there's at least half a dozen future Chief Master Sergeants. And we can all thank, he's gone, we can all thank Chief Peretti for creating one more vacancy. Seriously, I went to his retirement 2 weeks ago. The reason I went to his retirement is I wanted to believe he really was retiring. I'm like, And I come here, he's here. I'm like, Elton John's world farewell tour's shorter than Matt Peretti's. I hope he's watching this. But the point is, you can all do it. Now, that doesn't mean you all will do it. Do you know how many stupid mistakes I've made in my career? More than I recall. Do you know how many dumb lieutenant mistakes I made as a lieutenant colonel? There's one that haunts me, okay? I haven't always done the right thing. The opportunities I've wanted didn't always pan out. So, back in the day, because Goonan thinks I used to work with the Wright brothers. Back in the day, I'm going to preempt all of her jokes. Back in the day, you could go up for position vacancy promotion twice to lieutenant colonel. So once at 4 years, then at 5 years. Now there's been a change in policy. Now you can only do it at 5 years. I was an AGR. I was doing a pretty good job. I'm like, I got this. I'm a lock. And that fateful day in August, Captain Ron White, Coast Guard Captain Ron White comes into my office. I thought somebody had shot his dog. He looked awful. He's like, Rob, I got to tell you, you didn't get selected for promotion. He took it harder than I did. And I'm going to tell you, because people don't, when you get passed over for promotion and you see the idiots that got selected, it really hurts, okay? And you'll find this out. Unfortunately, all of you may find this out at some point or another. You'll sit there and go, he got selected? You got to be kidding me. I went through all of that, right? Because I'm not humble to a fault. There's a lot of pride in here. I just do a good job of hiding it. So fast forward to August the next year. John Ellsworth, Colonel John Ellsworth in Air Force Reserves comes in. He's like, yeah, Rob. No, I take that back. It wasn't Ellsworth. I was at the Indiana State Fair. I was on leave, back home in Indiana. There's a song called that. I'm sitting there on leave. Nobody calls me. Nobody tells me anything. I check. Actually, I had to get home because we didn't have iPhones back then. I had to check the computer, look through the list. My name wasn't there. Again? Come on. Now, by the time you meet your mandatory board, like, oh, I ain't taking nothing for granted here. Fortunately, I get selected in the mandatory board. So yes, your general never PV'd in the Air Force Reserve, okay? And some of you call me and you're like, I can't believe it, I didn't get PV'd. Now, it doesn't make you feel any better for me to say, yeah, neither did I. But the reality is, you can live through it. But what was really unlucky turned out to be very lucky, because I got selected to be an Air Force Legislative Fellow, which is IDE. Lieutenant colonels don't go to IDE. Fortunately, I started IDE like 2 days before I got promoted to lieutenant colonel. But being a legislative fellow changed my career trajectory completely. I didn't know that in August of, 2005, when, I felt like total dog doo because I didn't get selected for PV promotion. I didn't know that in August '06 when I felt like total dog doo and I didn't get selected for PV promotion. But looking back, I now realize that was the luckiest, unlucky thing that ever happened to me. So I say that because it's real easy to kind of get worn down. So I did ACSC and non-res. I did Air War College non-res. It sucks, okay? I get it. Why do I tell you all this? Because I'm looking back there at Ty. Yeah, I'll call people out. Why do I say this? We need you guys to be leaders. We need you guys to step up. Again, I wasn't anointed. I just kept plugging away at what you had to do, and sooner or later, there was a certain element of randomness, and I was in the right place at the right time. Now, I had to create my own right place and right time. And that meant some sacrifices. My dog is my favorite kid because the other two don't recognize me. But you've just got to be prepared to make the sacrifices. But we need you to make the sacrifices because we need another Chief Bisco. We need another Beth Hareen. We need another Chad Gibson. They don't grow on trees. They're just people like you who come up through the ranks. And that means some of you are going to have to sacrifice and say, Ty, I'm going to do Air War College, all right? Or I'm going to finish Air Command and Staff College, or all of the things that enlisted folks have to do, like get your community college of the Air Force degree, or all, and that one, I believe it's important. But I also thought it was rather funny when I was looking at Des Stevens, she's married, it's a different name, Des Stevens, who had a master's degree in social work, and they're making her get her CCAF degree. But you know what? When you do that, you're telling that young senior airman or that young A1C, it can be done. There's an importance to it. It sucks. Got it. But I'm asking you guys to do what sucks because we need leaders. It's not, and I've had, Ty back there, but you're Colonel Palmer, you're awesome. You've said that to me. I actually wrote it out and put it on the wall back in my office in Wisconsin. No, I'm just Rob Palmer, grew up in Plainfield, Indiana, who just went out and kept doing the stuff that it took to get me here. Not out of any sense of design. So that's the message we'll leave you. Every one of you can excel. Ain't easy, but we need you to do it. So the next thing I want to kind of transition to I'm going to tell a story, because we're storytellers, right? So this is all leadership stuff. I'm going to put a word up here. It's actually an acronym. Does anybody know what this is? ARFTA. Well, that stands for Atterbury Reserve Forces Training Area. Ha! You thought it was going to be something leadership, right? No. Camp Atterbury, or as in Indiana, we'd call it Camp Attertucky. This is where I did most of my training as a young National Guardsman. So I was a field artillery officer. First duty assignment, second lieutenant, fire direction officer. The fire direction center was where the message from the forward observers, they called in the target, we took the target and turned it into data and sent it down to the guns so that they could fire it. It's a pretty important job. But the other thing we did is we had to compute the safety data. So if you've, Bob, did you go to Camp Atterbury?
I think I was there once.
Okay. So in the middle of Camp Atterbury, now I need my red pen. The middle of Camp Atterbury, is a big, mostly rectangular area that's called the impact area. Anybody know why it's called the impact area? Because that's where the artillery rounds impact. Okay? So imagine, you guys have all been to the rifle range, you're shooting that way. Well, the impact area is where artillery and mortars all fire in from different directions. So you don't want to go in there. Bob was absolutely right. So around it is the buffer zone. And I think, if I remember right, it's a 500-meter buffer zone. So that way, if something happens to explode right here, you're still 500 meters from the edge, where, makes sense, right? Then, gotta switch colors. Out here, what do you think those are? No, those are targets. Artillery is a lot of fun. They take old tanks and old Jeeps and stuff like that and put it out there, and then you just blow the heck out of them all day long. So as a fire direction officer, your job is to compute the safety fan or the safety box for your unit. So you go to range control, and you say, I need the range safety data for firing point, we'll call it firing point 212. All right? So you go out there, and I'm going to end up writing on myself. So you go out there, and they give you this card, and everything is done in azimuths, directions. So they tell you what is safe, and it comes out looking something like this. Because it's really based on your guns, which are down here. This is what a gun looks like. See, those are the wheels, because I was in towed howitzers. And that's the tube, or the barrel, okay? So you have to fire inside this box. Now, to make things even safer as a young fire direction officer, you've got to create something called a safety tee. And we'll not get into the safety, but it's a smaller box that's really easy to understand, so that you can send it down to the gun bunnies. Those are the guys on the guns. This is bad, but I used to joke in the Fire Direction Center, we were the only section in the artillery battery that had all of its teeth, okay? Actually, the guns were a lot of fun. I had good friends down there. So you would carve out a part of it, and art not being my strong suit. So this right here would become your safety box or your safety tee. And the guys down on the guns knew that they could fire at any target in there when you sent the stuff down, right? So, as all budding field artillerymen, I'm going to ask you guys, this target right here, is that safe to fire? Yeah. This target up here, is that safe to fire? Okay, because it's all in our safety box, right? What about that target right there? Is that one safe to fire? I hear yes, I hear no. Who thinks it's yes? Okay, who thinks it's no? Okay, you're wrong. So this one, if you look, it's still in the safety data that they gave you, right? It's outside your safety box that you cut down to make it easier for the gun bunnies, right? But it's still in the safety data. It is still safe, right? Now, I didn't draw this very well, but let's say we have a target right here. It's in your safety box. It's on the line. Is that safe to fire? It is. It's in your safety data. It's in the box that you've drawn. And we know that it's in the impact area. Now, how am I going to bring this home for all of you? We're public affairs people. For the most part, we don't blow things up. But we live with this on a daily basis. We have a box that's given to, we have an impact area. Now, in artillery, when you have a round that goes off out here, that's a very bad day, okay? Every artillery round I put downrange went in the impact area, except for one. It was a very bad day. Good news is nobody got injured. But when that round went off, it happened to be an airburst, and I could see it. And I'm like, oh. I had just sat down on a rock with a cup of coffee. It was right after breakfast. I'm like, today's going to be a good day, and it wasn't. Okay? This is outside the regs. You can't do this stuff. This might even be outside federal law. Can't do this stuff, okay? And then you've got the buffer zone, and then you've got the stuff the regs say you can do. But as PAs, a lot of times we draw a safety box inside the safety data. So we kind of create a little bit of a AFI inside an AFI, right? Because we want to make sure we're safe. We don't want to take any chances. So when that public affairs target gets called in, and it's right here on the line, you're like, well, we're not going to call this the safety box, we're going to call that the comfort zone, right? I'm not real comfortable with that. I'd be more comfortable if that PA target was over here. Or when that PA target comes in and it's right here, and you're like, well, that's outside my comfort zone, so we're not doing it. But it's still inside the reg, right? We, collectively, are bad at this. And you know, I tend to engage people on social media. I bet I outdo Lisa Craig when it comes to that. So the other day, after the Super Bowl, apparently there was a Super Bowl. The Packers and the Colts weren't playing in it, so I didn't see any reason to watch. Somebody said there was a team, I don't know. But 2 or 3 days later, on the public affairs, Air Force public affairs page, not our secret reserve one, but the public affairs, somebody posts a picture of some Air National Guardsmen in uniform wearing their, what was that team? Chiefs. Oh, Chiefs, yeah, it was a Chiefs hat. It wasn't green and gold, I don't know. And someone says, can we still do this? Or can we do this now? And then they said the word I hate. This is the word that is fingernails on chalkboard to me as a public affairs officer. They said endorsement. Nothing spins me into the ceiling faster than hearing the word endorsement. Because I do know we're not allowed to endorse things, right? What is endorsement? Well, I have not found endorsement defined in our AFIs. I haven't looked through JAGs, but they're not in our AFIs. So I go to my Black's Law Dictionary. My office is in my civilian office. It's in the middle of the legal department. Actually, it's on the edge of the legal department, which I like to live on the edge. I keep a Black's Law Dictionary there so I can argue with the lawyers. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to pull out endorsement. The definitions in the Black's Law Dictionary are like an insurance provision that blah, blah. I'm like, nope, that is definitely not it. So I pull out my Webster's Dictionary. And the definition for endorsement is still not very helpful. So what do I think an endorsement is? Well, we're in the political season, right? Somebody endorsed such and such candidate, right? This political figure endorsed, what happened? What are they doing when they endorse this candidate? They're saying, I want you to vote for him, right? So you have a major superstar athlete. He endorses such and such brand athletic. Why does he do that? He wants you to buy. So endorsement means there's some element that we want you to do something, right? Does anybody here think that 4 Air National Guardsmen wearing Kansas City Chiefs hats is going to make anybody root for the Kansas City Chiefs more? No. Are they going to go out and buy Kansas City Chiefs stuff because they saw a picture of... Is that really endorsement? So being the smartass that I am, because I remember this very distinctly, I went back and found a picture of Admiral Sandy Winnefeld, who was the vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, at a Washington Nationals baseball game in his Navy whites with a Nationals hat on. I was actually a little surprised because the first time I ever saw the picture, he was wearing a Braves hat, and that was bad. That shouldn't be allowed. That's outside the impact area, Beth. So I posted it. I'm like, look, this is Admiral Sandy Winnefeld. He's wearing a Nationals hat at a Nationals baseball game that where he threw out the first pitch. Does anybody know who was in charge of public affairs for the Joint Staff when Sandy Winnefeld did that? Does anybody want to hazard a guess? I'm never in charge of anything. But it's a guy we've all known. His name's Ed Thomas. Colonel Ed Thomas was so I'm thinking this picture of 4 Air Guardsmen wearing Kansas City Chiefs hats is not a major endorsement here. And why are we making a smaller safety zone there? Right? We are the ones that do that. I'm saying, let's make sure we're using the whole safety data, not just our comfort zone. Another example, just this week on my way out here, I'm on the Air Force Reserve Public Affairs Facebook page. And someone asked the question, can you, and I'm not picking on anybody here, where's the AFI that says that we can't take a picture of a high school athletic team in front of the XYZ aircraft? I think back to my days at Whiteman and the B-2. And somebody else was, you're not going to find it in there. Okay. And one of our colleagues said, endorsement. No, I'm not. No, it was not endorsement. It was, what you do for one, you have to do for all. Can anybody find that in the AFI for me? No. Now, I'll admit, we can't play favorites. I learned way back when I went to DINFOS. By the way, when I went to DINFOS, it was at Fort Benjamin Harrison. Anybody in here go to Fort Benjamin Harrison to DINFOS? Yeah. Notice they're all old. Sorry, I'm calling it like I see it. Yeah. I actually went to Fort Harrison to DINFOS before Ed Thomas did. I never let him forget that. He's just a new guy. But back in DINFOS, they said, you can't give an exclusive to a reporter, right? We know you can't we can't guarantee an exclusive. But if the phone rings and a reporter says, I'd like to interview Colonel Smith, the wing commander, do you then pick up the phone and call all the other media and say, would you guys like to interview Colonel Smith because this television station wants to interview him? No, you don't. Now, if somebody else does, you can't say, well, he's only doing the interview because the first person to ask. Now, if 50, in fact, they used to teach us this. I don't know if they still teach it. If you have 4 or 5 requests for the same information, now's a good time to either put out a press release or do a press conference, right? Or some sort of roundtable, media availability, whatever. Let's apply that mindset. I'm not saying you absolutely need to put every high school that wants to take a picture in front of your aircraft that you need to accommodate them. I'm also not saying that you should never accommodate them. What I'm saying is you ought to be creative and think about this. How can I accommodate them? Why might I want to accommodate them, right? I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you need to think, okay? That's what we get paid for, is to think. And that's not just an officer thing. We all get paid to think. We all get paid to find those targets that are outside our comfort zone, but still inside the regs, right? So I'm going to transition to kind of my last thing, and that's about development. We need to develop ourselves. We need to get experience. So how do we do that? It's been funny because several people have come up to me. Scott came up to me. He had all sorts of questions about being a reserve wing PA. I'm like, dude, I feel you, but I can't help you. But you know what? I know people who can, right? I told you the name of several wing PAs you need to talk to, right? So a big part of development, and we've talked about it here, is the networking, right? But using each other. Instead of criticizing each other on Facebook like, well, should you have posted that picture? Well, why don't we talk about how we can build each other up and develop each other? And I'm not all touchy. People who know me, I'm not a touchy-feely guy, okay? But let's not play the passive-aggressive game of throwing each other under the bus. And sometimes I see that. And, you know, they're not the people that are here, right? They're the ones who didn't show up. But let's act as mentors. This is not an endorsement, but I will tell you, I use LinkedIn a lot. Not because I like the company. I don't know anything about the company. What I do know is it makes my job easier. It makes a lot easier. That is my virtual computer Rolodex. And when Beth Ring changes jobs and I lose her phone number or I don't know how to get a hold of her, I can look her up on LinkedIn. If worst case scenario, I can message her on LinkedIn. I can find out where she's working. In my line of work, by the way, I'm a healthcare lobbyist. That's like one of the least, that's actually less popular than being a member of Congress. But you know what? Using LinkedIn to be able to connect with people and maintain those relationships. So I recommend, whether you use LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, find ways to connect and stay connected. It's very important to your professional development. And that's what I used to tell wing commanders that. Because, you know, wing commanders don't like social media. Some of them do, I know. But they're like, well, all I see is a bunch of risk there, and I'm going to end up getting in trouble and all that. And I'm like, so you're telling me you're smart enough to fly an airplane, but not smart enough to do Facebook? Because my kids do Facebook. They do a bunch of things I'm not even sure what they are. You know, you need to be connected. Professional military education. Take every opportunity you can. First of all, you got the Air Force who's going to pay for you to do stuff, to learn stuff. Take advantage of it. Whether you go in residence, whether you don't go in residence, whether you apply to an RSSB selected school, or the enlisted version of the RSSB, there's a, yeah. Take advantage of that. It develops you as a person, right? Please do that. Not just in the world of regulations, but in all aspects of your military career, get outside your comfort zone. There's nothing quite like a joint job to make you really love being in the Air Force. I think that's really why they want us to get joint jobs, because they know, like, oh man, I can't wait to get back. and I have a bunch of joint jobs on my bio. So get outside your comfort zone. Do some things that are different. Develop yourselves. Make yourself that well-developed PA asset that's going to be a valued member of any commander's team, whether that's a combatant commander, a MAGCOM commander, or a wing commander, or the Air Reserve Personnel Center commander, or the, you know, whatever. Think of yourself as an asset that you're developing. Well, that's nice. I have 22 minutes left. I have 22 minutes left, so I want to open it up to questions. Well, there's actually one last thing I want to say. So when General Thomas hired me to be his mobilization assistant, I was just a colonel, and he said, Rob, I just want you to fix the reserve thing. Now, I mean, he's not saying that it was, what he wasn't saying was the reserve thing's broken. What he really was saying is, I don't understand the reserve thing. And that's fair, okay? He says, I want you to fix the reserve thing for me. That's what I do. So when you have problems, when you have challenges, don't hesitate to reach out to me, because fixing things is the most important thing he wants me to do. So Beth yesterday referred to me as the Queen, which caused a lot of eyebrows to go up, so I need to explain that, because it's actually my phrase. Anybody in here watch the TV show The Crown? Okay, I'm an admitted Anglophile, so yeah, Downton Abbey. I transitioned into The Crown. So in The Crown, and it's a recurring theme, you have the Prime Minister, and the Queen says, I ask you to form a government in my name. Or, you're the Prime Minister, I am the Crown, I expect to be consulted. So that's my relationship with Beth. She's the Prime Minister. She runs public affairs. I ask that she consults with me. She can do whatever she wants, but I want to have that input. And I want to provide that input from General Thomas's perspective, and I also certainly want to be able to provide her input to General Thomas. That's kind of my job. Now, one other thing I want to touch on about my job. You know, everybody's like, oh man, I could never do that. How do you, actually several people ask, how do you do that? Well, I don't know, I'm still trying to figure it out. But here's the thing, my job isn't to be Ed Thomas. That man is brilliant. He is incredible, and I will never be him. And every day he gets up and he consumes a lot of information and he goes out and does lots of stuff. Do you really think I can show up a couple days each month and be Ed Thomas? No. And I don't try to. My job is to fill in for Ed Thomas when he's on TDY or on leave. But my job's also to be there if a bus hits him, be able to step into his job and very rapidly spin up so that I can do his job. And granted, I'm being a little bit glib there. But let's be realistic about what our jobs are. There's no way, unless I do his job every day, that I could be as good as him. And even then, I probably wouldn't be as good as him. I'd be about 70%. And that's true if you guys are IMAs. I do everything I can to be ready when I hit the ground, but I know that there's still going to be a huge, steep learning curve that I'm going to run up. That's okay. That's what we're there for. We all have spin up. Now, General Flournoy talked about the importance of readiness, having the passport ready. And I'll tell you the reason to have your passport ready, because when they say, we need to send somebody that has a passport, you want to be that person, because probably they're going someplace cool, or at least someplace you hadn't been before. That happened to me once. We need to be ready. You need to do all those things that you have to do, but you're not going to be an expert. You have to be able to spin up to expert, and that's okay. So with that, I think I covered all the things I wanted to talk about in my stream of consciousness here. I'd like to take your questions, and any question is fair game. The dog's name is Mosby. He's 12. He doesn't do much anymore. Come on, guys. I know it's late. I know you all went out. You don't want me to start asking me questions, okay? That'll be embarrassing.
Hey, sir, Lieutenant Abraham from Dobbins. What was the most challenging topic you worked through when you were the director after PA?
Well, it was always fun because people would see me like, so what are you working on now? Thinking I'm like dealing with some major strategic communications issue. I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to figure out how we defend all of our civil service positions that they're trying to take back from us and make sure that we can defend the grades. That's not sexy, okay? It's important. So you think that you're dealing with a lot of really tough things. You are, but it's not the kind of communications things that we think makes us sexy. There were some, sequestration. We had sequestration when I was there. I look at Beth, and she's traveling all around visiting units and getting to know people. I'm like, I couldn't leave the base because we didn't have any money. So sequestration and all of the stuff that was going on with the not Budget Reconciliation Act, but the Budget, whatever it was, Control Act, the Budget Control Act, all of that stuff going on. So instead of really taking public affairs forward, I was trying to keep us from slipping back. Is that what you want to do? No. Is that what I had to do? Yeah. From a communications perspective, I think while I was the director, we relieved 2 wing commanders and a group commander and a command chief. That's tough. It's tough because a lot of times you know those people. It's tough because the person who called you to say they were relieving them knows those people. It's tough because you know that if it's a wing commander, he's got a wing PA, or he or she has a wing PA shop out there that you've got to think about. So that was challenging. They eliminated the band of the Air Force Reserve. So I got there right after it was announced, and basically I was with them until the last one of them left. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a huge advocate for Air Force bands. I don't think they're a waste. Hey, it's easy to say a band is a waste of money until you need one and don't have one. And I've been there. I mean, they do some great stuff, and it's not just playing ceremonies and stuff like that. I mean, these guys, their last concert, let's talk CommRel, let's talk recruiting. The last concert of what was left of the Band of the Air Force Reserve was a joint concert with the Macon Youth Symphony Orchestra. So our professional musicians were sitting side by side with 17 and 18-year-old musicians up in Macon, rehearsing and then performing. Where else in the Air Force do we take airmen and let them do stuff alongside high school people and not blink an eye? Remember that time when we took security forces into the high school and taught them how to shoot? Yeah, no. Right? Remember that time that we took the Air Force Academy football team down and let them play alongside a high school team? No. Nobody even thinks that about the band. That is access. And I don't know that all those kids are going to join the Air Force. In fact, I suspect maybe none of them are. But I remember looking at one of them wanted to go into college and study anthropology. If you guys remember, in the the 2000s, we were looking for anthropologists to help us understand Iraq and Afghanistan. It'd be great if that person says, you know, these military people are pretty cool. I played with them in the Macon Youth Symphony Orchestra. So, just a big plug for the bands. But deactivating the ban was tough because I didn't want to do it, and I didn't have any choice. Oh yeah, God. Oh yeah, gee, I also got to kill Comcam. It's like, you know, I'm sure there's a picture of the angel of death at AFRC, and under it says Colonel Palmer. Yeah, right. The good news was we brought that one back to life. But yeah, that's a great story. I walk into AFRC staff meeting, getting ready to go to the AFRC staff meeting, and Al Black of SAF PA calls me and says, hey, Rob, did you know that the Air Force Reserve is inactivating 4th Combat Camera? I'm like, no. And so I went to the staff meeting and went up to the A58. I'm like, sir, what's the deal here? He's like, General Jackson's already slapped the table on it. I'm like, why didn't I get a chance to have input into that? So it's kind of an interesting story. So we have at, and I don't know if they're still doing it this way, but you had different panels that help plan the budget for the Air Force and Air Force Reserve. And I used to go to Agile Combat Support because public affairs fell into Agile Combat Support, which is mostly your MSG type stuff. So I went to those meetings, and I'm like, I never heard this discussed, because I would have woke up for that part. How did this happen? Well, doing the forensics on it, remember, where was ComCam before it was public affairs? Comm, which was Global Vigilance Panel. So all those Global Vigilance guys are around the table, and they're like, we got to get rid of something. The PA guy in here? Let's kill that. Okay, I'm not sure it exists, but it was real easy for them to kill it because there's nobody there to argue against it. So when we had an opportunity to demonstrate to General Jackson the importance of ComCam in telling the Air Force Reserve story, he quickly said, you know, we got to figure out what are your proposals? And we came up with some solutions. I was working with Beth and working with Chief Gobin. I mean, I did the real, and where'd he go? There, Ham Underwood. I mean, they did the real heavy lifting, but we figured out a way to take down the squadron, create a group of IMAs to ComCam, and then start to recreate the squadron. And the recreate the squadron actually happened after I left. I only was there for the beginning. But that was a tough one too. And you know, went out to March and looked all those guys in the eye. Like, yeah, we're inactivating your unit, and we think we got a plan for you, but you know, that was tough. Took away the C-130s from Pope Air Force Base. That one, I can't show my face in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Robert Wilkie, the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, was at the time the military legislative assistant to Senator Tillis. He said some rather unpleasant things, Wilkie, and Senator Tillis, about the Air Force Reserve spokesman, who was me. I'm very, very careful around those guys now. Yeah, so there were a lot of tough issues. And it was the most rewarding job I ever had. I mean, it really was. It's like being a wing PA chief on steroids. And the best jobs in public affairs, I'm sorry, some of you are not going to like this, the best jobs in public affairs are where you're not working for another public affairs officer. Wow, I got a laugh out of John Quinlan there. Okay, next question. Come on.
I better start fast. This is Lieutenant Colonel Amy Hansen. I'm at Beale. I'm an IG currently, but I'm a PA as my primary AFSC. And I really liked what you said about the comfort zone and how we limit ourselves. But I also feel I've done some work on like human capital management and organizational structure and things like that. And the way that we are structured does not lead to any opportunities to push, well, it really limits the opportunities to push outside our comfort zone and still be assured that we will have a career.
You're absolutely right. So, you know, actually, when this whole joint thing started to evolve, so going all the way back to Goldwater-Nichols, which I think was 1986, the law said, Congress put in law, if you go to a joint assignment, and this is for the active duty people, that X percentage of those people have to be promoted. In other words, a promotion board should be made up of a certain percentage of people who have joint experience. I honestly believe that the reason they did that is they were afraid that the services would send their duds to joint assignments instead of their cool kids. So you've touched on something, you know, and here's the bad news, Amy. There are no guarantees. But, you know, it was fun because General Flournoy and I had a chance to take a tour of some of the AFWERX space. I'm going to have to go back to Wisconsin and go through hipster detox. But, because I am not cool, and this is way too cool for me. But, you know, we were talking to the AFWERX folks, and I think, I can't speak for General Flournoy, that's Beth's job. But I was really struck by how this startup culture is so different from military culture, which is why we have AFWERX. But as we start to institutionalize AFWERX, you guys tell me, are we going to make AFWERX more like the military, or is the military going to make, or is AFWERX going to make the military more like a startup? I think I know the answer to that one, right? You know, our culture is a blunt force, right? And then will we lose something? That's why this place is so cool. But then, you know, how do you sustain this? Because next thing you know, it starts planning and programming and, you know, all of those terms that I've tried to put on my mind, you know, that become part of being in the military. Why did I go down that path? Oh, because you're talking about creative human capital management. Our systems aren't set up for that. I would tell you as leaders, look for the opportunities to work within the regs, outside your comfort zone, to help people do that. If you send somebody to IG, figure out a way to bring them back. Or when they say, I'm ready to come back, let's make it up. VLPAD. So when I first heard about VLPAD in public affairs, I'm like, yeah, great. We're going to send reservists to 3 years of active duty at Minot, F.E. Warren, Thule. And then I saw the list of assignments. Stratcom, Strategic Command, not Strategic Communications, Stratcom, Denfos Deputy Commandant. We had one who was the AETC Director of Public Affairs. I mean, all these cool assignments. I'm like, this is a really good deal. Now, and see, my VL patters are back there nodding. But then we advertised in the Air Force, like, well, if you go to VLPAD, we might not be able to bring it back, and we're going to have to go through a recruiter, and we hope there's a place. We'd like completely unsold this thing. Here's a great opportunity, but let us tell you all the bad things about it. And we should always be honest and transparent and all that stuff, all for it. Great. But we, in public affairs, and I'll throw Bruce Bender into the mix because he was the director at the time, we're like, go. We'll find a way to bring you back. And we are. And we're even pushing into this all the way to right here to do it. Okay? But we're going to do it because it's the right thing to do. So that's what I'd say. I mean, for you, you're asking about, I'm out there, what's going to bring me back? You're a lieutenant. No. But as a lieutenant colonel, or as a chief, or as a senior, we ought to be thinking about how do we go to the edge to take care of people.
Well, and I've heard about all these people that have amazing civilian experience, and that's not reflected anywhere in their record.
You're absolutely right. And I don't think like everybody else does, and I think most people appreciate that. But I remember when you were supposed to go into DMDC and put in your civilian occupation stuff, I'm like, great, I got some great civilian, I put it in there. And then I find out like 6% of the military, or the reserve component did that. I'm like, people were afraid that they were going to get asked to do something based on their civilian. And I'm like, please pick me because of my civilian stuff. I'm like, I must be seeing this differently. But you're right. But there are great. CommCam is a perfect example of where we take people with some amazing civilian experience, and they are far ahead of where their counterparts on the active Air Force are. Yeah, I mean, those guys, it's unbelievable. But it's elsewhere, too. It's not just there. That's an easy example. You know, Erin Dick, who had to leave, she's in corporate communications for AECOM, I think is the name of the company. Huge construction and engineering company, multinational corporation. We got that kind of experience here, and trying to find ways to use it. But what it does is it requires us, the leaders, to go there every time, and that's hard. Next question.
Colonel Green's a great boss, by the way. Awesome. comfort zones. I've enjoyed some heated discussions with you as well. I appreciate you putting me in the outside that comfort zone.
I don't ever remember being heated, but maybe that was my side of it.
Well, I mean, you are the general. So this spoke a lot to me because, a lot of our wing PA chiefs have to sit at the table with the wing commander. They got to lobby for resources. They got to lobby for all the things that they want to accomplish. What advice would you give our guys out there and gals about how to effectively advise and counsel those commanders and get that seat in the table and to let them know what we need to do to enable his mission or her?
Boy, that was an easy one.
Give you a softball.
So here's part of it. First of all, let's start with you need to be excellent. Because your argument with the wing commander gets a lot easier if you're excellent than if you're mediocre. Well, that was the hard part. I mean, right? Being excellent is a lot harder than being mediocre. So that's part of it. The other part is that randomness. Every wing commander's different, all right? Some wing commanders come in and they love PA. Some wing commanders come in and hate PA. Some wing commanders come in and hate PA until they really need it, and suddenly they love it, okay? I mean, that was kind of General Flournoy's story. Not that he said he hated PA, but I mean, it's kind of, so we'll call that's the independent variable, right? Practice, not necessarily practice, but in your mind, be prepared to advocate for your cause, right? I think for the most part, wing commanders understand public affairs is important. They may not realize, they may not prioritize it the same, Beth is right, I admit that I love my golden retriever more than my kids, but it's one of those things, I love all my kids, but each one of them's different. And that's what that wing commander's looking at. I mean, yeah, you need stuff, but he's a pilot and the OG needs stuff too. I mean, it's tough. If it was easy, anybody could do it. You guys heard me say that the other day. So that's part of it. Talk to, again, using that network, talk to your counterparts. Hey, what worked? How did you sell this? You got that? Wow, how'd you do that? That kind of stuff. Use the peer network, because some of your peers have been very successful, and some of your peers need to learn about your success. But don't operate in a vacuum. You see, he's sitting there with that skeptical look, like he's full of it.
I've had the full spectrum.
Sure. And I think anybody who's done it as long as you have, and you've done it for a while, is going to have that full spectrum. I mean, absolutely. So, next question. Come on, guys. At least one or two more. I know we're getting slow on time, but one or two more. How often do you get to take a shot at a PA general?
Hi, sir. This is Marjorie Shore. I'm with the 911th in Pittsburgh, kind of bridging off of Colonel Quinlan's question. And I'm sure several other wing PA chiefs here can sympathize. It's not so much, oftentimes it's not so much us not able to move outside of our comfort zone. It's other people who won't move outside of our comfort zone that stomp on us. For example, I recently had an issue with our anti-terrorism guy where we actually got into an argument. And he told me that our job is not to bring out the Boy Scouts and to take pictures. Our job is to put warheads on foreheads, and we need to keep that in mind. And it's like, well, we wouldn't have the money or the personnel to be able to do that if PA didn't do their job. And we've been getting stomped on really hard. And my situation is different because I wear my rank on my shoulder and on my collar as a PAO, and everyone in my unit knows it. But I'm really struggling navigating this dynamic of how to sell public affairs, not necessarily to the wing commander, but to the other advisors across the wing. What would you advise, especially in the security environment that we have right now?
Well, I mean, first of all, I have to acknowledge you're absolutely right. It is tough. And rank on your sleeve versus rank on your collar doesn't make it easier. But believe me, it's not on my collar anymore. Things don't just magically happen whether you're a captain, major, lieutenant, colonel, or even brigadier general. I mean, they don't. So so now we'll really dash your hopes that there's no it's gonna get better when. No, okay. One, know the regs. I once had a public affairs person tell me, the only time we ever look in the regs is when we're trying to win an argument. Okay, it's probably not a bad time. But when I was at Whiteman, and I think about Whiteman Air Force Base, the B-2 bomber, I was there in 2004, so it was still relatively new technology, and we were still using it to drop, well, at that time we weren't really using drop bombs, we were kind of in between dropping bombs. But, Man, they'd say you get the hook, they get the hook. So I'm at Whiteman, and I'm thinking, super top secret stealth airplane, right? I never found a unit that was better at public affairs than the 509th Bomb Wing, bar none. I mean, you know, we're joking as we put this thing on. You put a lav mic on a B-2 pilot, I'm like, he already knows exactly how to unzip, and you know, he knows more about the lav mic than you do as a PA. I mean, they were incredible. Well, why are they incredible when they find a super secret? And so I asked, because I was there, I was a reservist doing 120 days to fill in for their chief of public affairs who was deployed. So I, being a new guy, being new to the Air Force, because I formerly was an Army officer, I'm like, hey, Wing Vice Commander, tell me, why is it this is such a great place to do public affairs? He says, that airplane there costs $2.2 billion apiece. The American people need to know what they're getting for their money. Now, you don't see that everywhere, but that wasn't Colonel Matt Erickson. That was the culture of the 509th Bomb Wing. Now, but I had an interesting conversation with the Security Forces Senior Master Sergeant, very similar to yours. It had to do with taking a group out to see the B-2. No. Picture in front of the airplane. I get to bring this whole way full circle, right? Picture in front of the airplane. The Independence, Missouri, home of Harry S. Truman, the Independence, Missouri Police Department motorcycle drill team or whatever wanted to get their picture in front of the B-2 bomber. Okay? We had no problem with that. The Security Forces guy says, they can't bring their weapons on the base. And young Lieutenant Ed Gulick, some of you may know Ed, he was Mr. Gulick. Mr. Gulick says, Major Palmer, they can't bring their weapons. I'm like, well, first of all, that's a problem, because if you're a police officer in uniform without a weapon, you are a target. At least that's what they think. And I'm not going to argue with them. So I pull out the local Security Forces reg, not the AFI. I go to the local Security Forces reg, and there's a paragraph in it that says, local and state law enforcement officials may bring their weapon onto base. So I call the Senior Master Sergeant. I'm like, I'm reading this in your local reg that law enforcement officers can bring their weapon onto base as long as they have a badge, all that stuff. Well, that's not what it means. Okay, but that's what it says. Well, we're thinking about changing that reg. I'm like, I don't care. This is what it says. This is how we're going to follow it, and it's your reg. So I'm not saying that always works, but it's a good place to start. Know the AFIs better than anybody else, because if you know the AFIs, it's easier to get here. If you don't know the AFIs, you're much more comfortable right here. And I don't want to sound like an outhouse lawyer, but if you know the AFIs, a lot of times, you'll win the argument, because the people you're arguing with didn't open the AFIs. One more question, and then I'll take the hook. But one more question from anybody? Come on. Are you that bored with me, sir? Oh, so what I heard him say was, how do we deal with public affairs in the Opsec environment that we find ourselves? That was the question you asked, wasn't it? It's a lot easier when he doesn't have the microphone. I can hear the questions better. It's all about balance, right? And we have to fight for our part on the scale. Because it's real easy. I once had a guy explain to me computer security. He's like, I can make this computer impenetrable. No one will be able to penetrate this computer. Get people's attention when you say that. Does anybody know how he did it? He unplugged it from the wall, he unplugged it from the network, and it sat right there. It was impenetrable. It also was not useful. We've got to argue for the usefulness, right? You can't give up. The comment I made about Space Force the other day. It's easy to sit there and say, well, we've got an Air Force. We're always going to have an Air Force. People love the Air Force. We'll always get new airplanes. That's not true. So in my hometown of Madison, Wisconsin, actually I live in Oregon, Wisconsin, which is about 7 miles south of Madison, we have an Air National Guard unit there. They're F-16 pilots. Carrie Hepp's brother-in-law used to fly with them. They have been selected for the F-35, right? Which is big news to about half of the community of Madison. The other half's really mad about it. Now, and so I start watching some of the social media about it. I don't engage them, but I start watching some of the social media about it. And it's not about F-35s. It's about Air Force aircraft. And some people are really opposing it. Now, I thought that was really interesting, but what's even more interesting is some of the people who are leading the effort against the F-35 in Madison were the same people who led the effort against the F-35 in Burlington, Vermont. Now, I am like science illiterate, but I'm pretty sure that if you were in Burlington, Vermont, you cannot hear an F-35 take off in Madison, Wisconsin. So that tells me it's not about noise, it's not about the environment, that there is an active adversarial group out there who doesn't want us to have fighters in Wisconsin. Huh? I didn't hear that. And so it's, yeah, we go out in the community, they love us. Not everybody loves us. And there are people who will oppose us at every step. They don't, in our case, it's not that they don't want F-35s. They'd like to see the Air National Guard go away from Madison, Wisconsin. So I don't want to sound all gloom and doom, but there is a real threat we don't always see out there, and that we can't assume that everybody, So all week I've walked up here from the JW Marriott, which is about 6 blocks away. And I've been surprised the number of people who said, thanks for your service, just out of the blue, thanks for your service. Some of them were even surprised to see a general. Okay? This morning I walk up here, and I passed this guy who looks like I would describe him as disheveled and maybe not have a permanent address. And he starts screaming at me. And I'm not really sure what he was saying, but it had to do with the Air Force, and there's no Army behind me, and he just kept going on. And he didn't stop, and we just did that. And he was going all the way down the street. And I'm like, not everybody loves me as much as my mom and dad do. Now, I don't want to make light of this guy. My guess is he's probably faces some pretty significant challenges. It's kind of a wake-up call. That was the first guy in Madison who didn't say, thanks for your service. Or I should say, said something much less complimentary than thanks for your service. So, our story's not done being told. We can't rest a moment and say, it's a piece of cake. It's not. We've got to do what we do every day. We're never done. Beth's been handing out books all week. They did that at my office. I had to read a book for our executive staff retreat, The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. Sinek sounds better. And, his whole point is some people play thinking life is a definite start, end, tally up the score, but really life is an infinite game, and we just keep going. There's no end to it. And there's an end to us, but there's no end to the game. Well, that's true of public affairs. There is no end. There is an end to each one of us. Mine's in 3 years. It's pretty clear now. But the need for public affairs to go on and continue. Someone here will pick up the flag for me and keep moving. Someone here will pick up the flag for Chief Bisco and keep moving. Somebody will pick up the flag for Chief Saraceno and keep moving. We need you to do that. So that's a good place for me to wrap up. Thank you all very much for your time today. Someone thanked me for being here. This is my job. This is where I should be. There should be no other place more important than being with you guys, because we are Air Force Reserve Public Affairs. So thanks.
So I was
Give me a
kidding
book.
that I do have a book for you. You are truly our herald and our champion for empowering readiness and building and leading this powerhouse team. So
Well, thank
you for your
Thank you
time,
very
your
much. I
counsel,
appreciate that.
the drinks, the discussion,
Candace? Lunch.
and just the perspective you shared. You brought some really interesting and unique approaches to how we can get at some of our challenges. And I certainly learned some stuff, and it sounds like you all did too.
Was I pithy?
You were very pithy, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before we leave, I would like to recognize some very, very important people, probably even more important sometimes than General Palmer, but not really, sir. I just had to roast you one more time. So we have had a pretty amazing team that pulled this all together. Been working hard for a couple months. We really didn't know if we were going to get a budget with the CR continuing to be delayed and having a February conference. It was tough, but thankfully that happened and we were able to push full forward over the holidays and bring this together, but it was definitely not me. So I have two groups to recognize. The first group, and if someone could grab the box over there, I appreciate it. Our hosts here, both at the Capital Works Factory and at AFWorks. So I've got three folks I'd like to come up. Would Mimi Wythe, Brian Hiddle, and then Captain Jen Mars please come forward? Yeah, thank you. So Mimi's been the face up at the front, helping direct us where we need to go and just being a wonderful smile as we walked in every morning. So thank you so much for being here. Captain Mars works here at AFWorks and was really instrumental in helping integrate the team with Colonel Parker. And Brian, you are amazing, infusing all of the hipster, like environmental vibe of this whole place with us every day and just taking us where we needed to go. He worked all the lights, all the comms, all the space. So you guys made this happen for us, so thank you so much. So we also, this career field is amazing. Everyone always jumps in, leans forward. So we've had some on-site volunteers, not from my office, but agreed to come in a day early to get here, early morning hours to help with setup, organization, and special tasks. So would Major Megan Smith, Captain Jessica Gross, Lieutenant Casey Mull, Master Sergeant Chris Parr, Master Sergeant Jeremy Roman, Tech Sergeant Adam Borgman, Tech Sergeant Andrew Park, Tech Sergeant Kelly Goonan, and Staff Sergeant Justin Norton. Please come up. Thank you, guys. You what? Okay. So we could not have done any of this without you all stepping forward, not only agreeing to pay your way to get here, a little bit, but then, you know, sacrificing some of your experience for the conference to make sure it was a great one for everyone else. So I have coins for each of you as well, and so I'm just going to walk down and say thank you. So thank you guys so much. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Oh, I guess we've got to do the coin first. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, guys. All right. Are we set for after this as well with the plan? Okay. Thank you so much. Casey, you're amazing. So, all right, one more round for these folks. Would my AFRC team stand up, please, one more time? AFRC Public Affairs. So we have already planned a post-symposium resiliency tactical pause back at Robbins for next Friday. So we're gonna spend some time and celebrate together. But there's two final people I want to take a moment to bring up here. I'm sure you guys won't be surprised to have Lieutenant Colonel Parker and Major Meredith Kirchhoff come up. So these two are the ones that made it happen. There we go. 3, 2, 1, go. So if you guys haven't met Tina, she's my IMA at AFRIC PA, although she doesn't work for me really. She's full-time here at AFWorks as their communication director on long-term MPA. But what a blessing that has been, because she is the one that was able to secure this area and work with the team that we've thanked. And then Meredith here just jumped in full force. Not only did she run the conference, but as of 1 March, she is going to be one of my IMAs as well. So she's moving over from the 94th. So ladies, I have books for you as well. You'll have to, it's a powerhouse team, so you're gonna have to share the book right now. There was only 5 on Amazon. I needed 6, so Tina, yours is in the mail. But definitely you are the leaders behind this powerhouse symposium, so I can't thank you enough. I'm giving you guys. Okay, I think we have a surprise final presentation. There may be some pictures on here from last night as well, we'll see. So we're gonna wrap it up with this. Unless there's any other administrative comments when this is done, please complete your surveys, and that is your exit ticket to depart the conference. Be safe traveling home. I am staying around through this afternoon. If you have any issues or need any help, I'll be here, and there's a couple of my team that are staying. So reach out to us if you need some help with travel or concerns, and I appreciate you guys helping us clean up your areas before you go. But thank you for all your engagement, meeting all of you face-to-face. This has been an amazing experience for me, and I look forward to coming out and visiting you and your units as you're engaging as an IMA and your active duty units. And safe travels. Let's roll the final video.